fine.
Welcome, everyone. Marianne is joining us from the phone. So we have a perfect attendance tonight. I'd like to welcome everybody. Let's start with audience comments from the public. First person I have is Frank. And everybody, name and address for the record, please. Reminder, yes.
Ready?
Yep, go for it.
I'm Frank Cartwright. My address is 1000 Via Capri Lane in Siena. On behalf of my wife, PJ, and myself, I wish to voice our opposition to the CROA Board of Directors entering into any agreement with the Osceola County which involves receipt of county funds in exchange for any present or future use of any amenity presently owned by Celebration homeowners. My wife has already communicated to each of the CROA Board members our opinion in the matter, and I speak tonight to publicly reaffirm our opinion. We believe the access to private amenities is an integral part of the value of our property, and to diminish the private use of any way, however significant it might be, will adversely affect our property values. We have full faith in the judgment of the CROA Board of Directors to act in the best interest of all the county commissioners. Let's see, I said members of the association. A trust, unfortunately, we do not unfortunately share with the members of Osceola County Commissioners. The county commissioners have responsibility to all county residents. CROA has the responsibility only to our members. Accordingly, we strongly urge the CROA Board of Directors to reject any proffer of the Osceola County. And all the board members have received, I hope, this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jack McLaughlin.
Okay, my time doesn't start until I get here. Here's one for you.
Jack's going to talk long enough. We need a coloring book.
Always prepared,
I'll get you
Jeff.
colors and translator, okay?
Wow.
Hello, my name is Jack McLaughlin. I live at 205 East Park Drive in Celebration. So good evening, members of the board, the audience, and fellow members of our community. I have two issues to discuss with you this evening. Your first action item tonight is the discussion of the $2.1 million Osceola County agreement approved by the county. I emphatically urge you to reject this agreement. I was on the board when the subject was first presented to us by the county. At that time, they were satisfied with our prioritization of the use of the facilities. Okay, that's changed drastically with the latest revision you have. The amount they provided, $2.1 million, is woefully short of an agreement that requires this. The facilities in question cost us around $4.6 million to build, and over the next 25 years, it'll take $2.5 million to maintain them, plus an additional $200,000 every year to operate them. So that's $5 million, roughly $10 million. They're talking about $2.1 million. It's a drop in the bucket. What I'd like you to consider is that 43% of all your tax dollars go to the Osceola County. This does not include local or state school board, fire, anything like that. So if you extrapolate this out for 4,300 residents, it's roughly $9 million a year we pay to the county. Times 22 years that Celebration's been around, almost $200 million. Our return on investment is $1 for every $100 we spend. It's pretty bad. So let's face it, we are a donor community. The county uses our money for everyone else but us. I find it ignorant and offensive to our community that one of the county commissioners in voting for this agreement called us highfalutin. Okay, I find this pretentious and pompous. Where did that come from? This agreement wasn't our proposition, it was the county's. I'd like to remind you that the county does not provide us the normal services that most county residents get, such as the annual street cleaning or the weekly trash pickup. We pay for all this stuff. Not only do we pay for that, we also pay for an additional deputy. And I defy you to find a Zone 21 deputy who's constantly patrolling Celebration. Bob Hansel, Providence's Zone 22 deputy years ago. I can't find him. So now, I gotta correct myself for one thing. They did provide us a library. And they also provided the paving of the streets out there at Celebration Avenue, which is my next subject, and that's what you have before you. Okay, that's the proposed changes to Celebration Avenue that runs from 192 all the way to Waterside. A meeting is scheduled September 24th in this building to discuss that. 2 members of our community who are non-elected have been meeting with the county for over a year to build this plan. Okay, the CDD just found out about this, and they have a workshop scheduled on September 10th that you've been all invited to. I hope you take that opportunity to attend it.
What day was that, Jack?
September 10th.
We just
I
got the
just
email.
forwarded a calendar invite to you.
We just got the emails.
Okay, I'm not conversant enough with this plan to render an opinion on it right now. It could be good, it could be bad. The problem I have is transparency. I think because it affects a significant portion of the traffic in Celebration, it needs greater vocal input or representative from the community. Besides that the September 24th meeting, there needs to be more meetings. There also needs to be bailouts or information passed out to homeowners. And I would ask that we have a community vote on this issue to determine whether we should go forward with this change. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
On that particular subject, I just heard about this afternoon, as I think the rest of the board did. I find it worrisome that something is being presented as almost done, and no one from CROA, or I just heard now CCD was aware of it. That is not good. Okay, those are the 2 people from the public who signed up. Does anyone else from the public would like to speak? If yes, would you just please raise your hand? Okay, so what we're going to do now to wrap up the public comments is Commissioner Chowdhury is here. We thank you very much for that. We're going to have her speak, and she's also brought members of her staff, which we very much thank and appreciate. We're going to allocate time for her to present her thoughts.
Thank you.
We, as a board, will discuss action item 1 at the regular time in the agenda, which is the resolution. That will be board discussion only. If any board member has a question for a member of the staff, they may ask it, and we appreciate if they can answer it. But right now is when Commissioner Chowdhury can brief everyone on her thoughts, and then we'll discuss it later. Thank you very much for being here.
No, thank you very much for giving me this time. Thank you so much for the residents and for being here this evening, for allowing me to speak. In the interest of time, I'm going to make sure I stick to my script and not go off script so that everything's kind of covered of some of the residents I spoke to in Celebration, and just to be clear. First, allow me to apologize on the county's behalf for any potential misunderstandings or miscommunication of the interpretation of the contract that will be reviewed today. Please know that I understand firsthand that decisions like these are never easy, and I am here today so that we, as the county, can provide to you all information so that your final decision is made with facts and not with misunderstandings. It's critical that we note this contract is a first of its kind in District 1, and as such, it will be an example moving forward with making partnerships in the future with other communities around Osceola County. I am proud of District 1 residents. I consistently speak about our district always showing dedication, compassion, and leadership within our community. In this particular case, the residents of Celebration. Today with me, I have our county attorney, our county manager, our deputy manager, and staff to help with any questions pertaining to the contract, including clarifications on the public spaces. I also have handouts right here. I already started passing them out, but we'll pass them out again for the board and for the residents, as well as some area maps and some information here to be more descriptive and show exactly where the public areas are versus the non-public areas. The proposed agreement before you divides the properties into 2 areas. The competitive area, which includes 3 areas designated as Field 1, Field 2, and Field 3. If one of the staff could help me, we could take that one out first. The public area, which includes the open space pavilion, trails, and the remainder of the community park other than the competitive area. The competition area is available only to registered fee-paying users. That's only for registered fee-paying users, Field 1, 2, and 3. The general public is not entitled to access the fields freely. The public area is available to county residents without charge during posted park hours. The exceptions are as follows. There is no public access to the concession area except to make purchases, which in the concession area is also your bathroom and meeting spaces. The meeting spaces are also available only if they are rented and paid for. And the pavilion is available for rental and for general use by county residents when it is not rented. CROA will be the sole collectors of all funds that will come in from rentals in the entire area. This includes the competition area and the public access area that are rented out by residents of Osceola County. All funds collected are by and for CROA. The county will not and cannot dictate in any way the decisions that this CROA board makes now or in the future when collecting these funds and where or how they are dedicated. In the current county plan for trails, let me just bring that one out so you can point towards the. In this current county trail connectivity, there is no plan of going through the competition area. This would not even be permitted because the county would have to pay back CROA for any and all cost of use and value. So once Dave turns it around, you'll see the color. It's color coordinated. The trail's green, the red, and then followed the trail. So it's nowhere near the field. Regarding liability, as we all know, this is a partnership we're entering. And as such, it is possible and frankly most likely that everyone, including the county, would be named in a lawsuit seeking damages for injuries occurring on this property. Regarding the changes of the contract, which has been a huge concern, many residents have reached out to me to understand the exact changes that happened when the vote took place at the county commission meeting. After explaining that all areas of the contract pretty much stayed the same, with the two exceptions. One, the time frame of the public use from 25 years to 99. And two, trail access changed from 25 years to in perpetuity, which is forever. And that's the trail, again, going all the way. Now it's down where the red and the green is. Yeah. On the bottom. Yeah, the red and the green. The majority of the county commissioners stated that it is important to have trail access as the entire county is working on accessibility and connectivity all over the county for trails. Also note that the trails are not changing the fields or plans or even narrowed in any way. Regarding the 25 years to 99 years, for the public access in the spaces as we designated, you can put that one down and leave that one up, yeah. In the diagram, above there, the majority of the BCC board wanted to be sure that access is given to those that have paid into the funds used to support the project. In conclusion, it is important to note that as this CROA board understands that decisions are made by the majority of the board, this is the same in the county commission. The concerns of my commissioners had mostly to do with accessibility for the taxpayers of Osceola County. This includes residents from different districts. When impact fees dollars are used, public use areas are required by law. If this contract moves forward, therefore, getting the limited public use areas with the timeframes identified and passed by my board was a compromise. We as a board members and residents in Osceola County know that justifiable compromises have to be made in order to move forward on the bigger picture, which in this case is working collaboratively with our great residents of Celebration and showing that we are one in our community and our county. This also sets precedent, then shows other HOAs how they too in the future could create these great agreements with the county and move forward just like this one. I have always said and will continue to say, and I mean this from my heart, Celebration is Osceola County, and Osceola County is Celebration. And to me, that's it. That is what we are. We're all one. I am honored and humbled to represent this community and all the residents in it. Our residents have contributed in our county in so many ways and continue to do so every day. Besides being the major contributors to our tax base, our residents give their time and efforts by volunteering in nonprofits, sitting on county boards, donating funds to many causes, and providing great family-friendly events here and entertainment and Celebration. Therefore, I repeat that Celebration is Osceola County. Again, I want to thank you all for your time and attention and allowing me to speak. We will respect any decision that comes from this board, and I know it's a difficult decision, but we will respect it. Myself and my staff, like I said, are here to answer any questions, and if by any chance you want a full understanding of exactly everything is and want to hold a town hall and table this, we're also up to that as well. If I can just point out some stuff to the residents. So as you guys see here, this is the fields, which clearly shows the 1, 2, and 3 are the private.
She's gonna call
Sorry, it is only.
She's gonna call back.
Available only for registered
Yeah,
fee-paying
I told her.
community users. So you and I, even living here, will go play there, right? And the concession, no public access to the concession area except for purchases. So if there's a game, parents are gonna go buy chips and soda, right? And the bathrooms are there as well as the meeting room. So all that is controlled by the CROA and what the times provided and how they rent it and so on.
Peggy, not to cut you off,
And
can
then
you
the
step
pavilion-
back this way for the camera, just so we
Oh.
can see everything you're doing? I'm sorry.
And the pavilion available to public use except when it's reserved. And I was told that most likely when the fields are reserved, this field specifically, most likely the pavilion will be reserved. So you can't just go sit in the pavilion and so forth because of that. But yes, that's basically, this is the gist of what the county has as final agreement and what was approved by our county commission. And so I hope it was clear. I just wanted to clarify some of the misunderstandings. And I hope, I'm sorry, Ward.
No, that's
Quite all
okay.
right, that's quite all right.
Actually, the only thing that I want to make sure that you bring back over is your field, because I think what he pointed to and what you referred to were different. So just go ahead and finish up with there, but I want to make sure when you turn back to the board so I can understand what you're saying there.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
The trails here, just to be, so this is in red, you see red, it already exists, right? So the county's already been working on multi-trails for bike paths, for swingers, the kids nowadays like those hoverboards, that's what my daughter has, and it's crazy, but that's what they like, right? So this connectivity would come here, and then the green is proposed trail. You can see the distance, this is the proposed trail, the red again is already done, this is the proposed trail, and again, the red is done. And in the future, we would, love to talk to CROA and CBD, see what other ideas regarding the trails, because nowadays connectivity and trails is what a lot of people are asking us for health purposes too, which is a good thing. So, to answer your question,
I'd like to see, assuming everybody would, so, or at least the board.
I've been planning on YouTube the live stream, but it's got a little delay. I'm trying to see what's going on that
I'm
side.
so sorry, I should
You're
have
good.
reminded. So this is where it kind of explains what we were talking about. So field 1, 2, and 3.
Right,
That's what you folks know. That's the language actually in the contract. It's
Right.
right here.
Yep.
So this is also the language in the contract regarding the pavilion.
right,
And this also is the language in kind of the concession stand includes the restrooms which you
Right.
have and the meeting spaces which we know have to be.
right. I think our biggest concern is the trails and where it goes.
Yeah, sure. So this red is what the county has already built. So you see this says existing trails?
So sidewalks,
Right,
if we will.
got it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The green is the connector. So we want to connect it to go all the way to this one that's already there. And then this one will go around there.
Go down Celebration Avenue and up.
Do you want to see?
I'm not following.
I'm not either.
I'm sorry,
Dave, can you explain?
yeah.
That's Celebration Avenue all the way in back through
Yeah, that's
Artisan
a
and
sidewalk.
out there.
Yeah, it's our
That's what it
sidewalk.
is. That's what through this.
So the trails that are on the road are all on public right of way.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's also a potential trail connection through the wetlands, but that's not part of this
That's
agreement.
not part of
Right.
this agreement.
Right.
That was future
Right.
conversations.
Right.
So this would be like, is this the right of way?
Yeah,
It's
that's all,
right of way. It's
that's all
not-
striped on the
We're
road.
not cutting through anything that is built or stuff like that.
But how does that relate to the fields, I guess is my big
And
question.
that's what was my question when I saw it on the contract.
Okay,
It was
so-
just so that you can see that we're trying to do the fields.
There is a trail that is already built that kind of connects through.
Well, it's not really a trail, it's our CROA sidewalk. At least, okay,
Right, it's like a sidewalk.
okay.
Well, no, I'll get into,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Okay.
keep going.
I just wanted to make sure that we were,
And that was my same question, because I was like, we shouldn't have put it in there, kind of confuses people as to where
Right.
the trail is. But that's why I wanted to bring this, because this was that conversation like this. So I hope I was clear, I'm sorry about the misunderstanding.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you,
And we're happy to answer any questions during the discussion.
thank you.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Can we do questions, and if you got a question, let's do it in action item 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna move this back
Yes.
here behind me then.
And I'll just, go ahead. Maybe I can just put this in front. Is
Yeah,
that okay?
please do.
All right.
Mary Ann's back on.
Okay, so for the sake of the audience, when we get to action item 1, then any questions for the commissioner or the staff can be raised by the board. They will be free to answer questions that come up, but I don't want to destroy the meeting before we even called it to order. With that, any other public comments? Are we done? Verify that the meeting is properly noticed.
Yes, it was.
Verify a quorum.
Yes, you do.
Sorry.
You need to come up and state your name and address, please.
My name is Mary Lou Hood, and I live at 275 Celebration Avenue. No, I don't. I live at 275 Golden Marine Drive. This is why I stayed there. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, my God. The county said that this is the first one of these opportunities in Osceola. My question is it the first one, or are there some in other counties that we have to look at or learn from?
And when we go to action item 1, we'll ask Commissioner Chowdhury if she'd be willing to answer that question, okay? But we won't lose your question, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody rise, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Call the meeting to order. Motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Vaughn, second is Kevin. Any comments? Call the vote. Aye.
Aye.
No, passed. Approval of the minutes. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Jackson and David. Any comments? Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Okay, committee reports. Please, we've got people in the audience that we don't have there. We have changed the committee report structure earlier this year to really be, we read them all in advance and everything like that. And if the board has any questions or if there's anything special, then we go to it. Any questions on ARC? Any questions on covenants? Dog park? Special events? Artisan park? Recreation? Then we'll go to the liaison reports.
Technology was not listed here.
I'm sorry,
It is a standing
technology.
committee,
Technology?
and there were a lot of technological things in the management report.
Yep. Okay, with that, let's go to the liaison reports. CCDD, any comments or questions? I would like to acknowledge, again, for people who might not have seen Jack's earlier comments, the bike path lane that would go all the way out to 192. I would encourage residents, actually, I would encourage Steve, or JR, if we can get something in a Friday flash or something like that, it would be good. We can get what information we can get and at least get it out there so people are aware of it. I don't care, like Jack said, if it happens or doesn't happen, I want people to be aware so they at least have a right to have their opinion.
It ran last Friday. That's the
Okay,
first one.
perfect.
It's gonna continue running up to the meeting.
Great, I missed it, thank you. Any other liaison report items? Island Village update. Bennett could not be with us tonight, so we're going to pass that. That is proceeding. Financial review, let's go to Vaughn.
Okay, to brief, operating fund revenues, less expenses are above budget by 108,000. Operating cash, strong at 1.8 million. Reserve working capital cash fund is at 0.4 million, which is down from 3.2 million because paying what's due on the athletic fields. I think we're close. Have we paid that off now? We're
Yes,
fully
we
paid
just-
now, right?
We just paid our last invoice
Okay.
on the engineer.
Fields are paid. We've included a new exhibit that shows the total civic corridor development costs of $6.4 million as of June 30th, 2019. So that's the entire cost of everything, came to 6.4. That's it.
All right, Steve, call up the reserve fund page. I just want to make, since we got a lot of new people here, and we're going to get into this later. So here, I'm going to go through 3 or 4 of these in a row. So I want to make sure people understand. We got $1.5 million in operating cash. Steve has said before that under CAI, good practice under operating cash is to have 3 months of cash on hand for emergencies and stuff like that. For the reserve fund, we have $1 million. When this is as of June 30, this should be July 30th. This is a typo. Sorry about that. So we have $1.1 million in replacement reserves, which is strong. Capital funds, as Vaughn says, went from $3.2 million down to $400,000, driven by the athletic fields, which I'll talk about here in a second. Contingency fund, which is an emergency type fund, we said we wanted to have a goal of 500. We're just letting it build up with interest, so we got 476 here. So as we talk about the 2.1 million later, that would be added to the 400,000 if we said yes, we're going to take it. But just so you know, this capital improvement fund is a fund that grows. We spend money when we do special projects, it grows. So that way you kind of understand it. It built up, finishing the athletic fields. So that's important. If you go to, so Vaughn had, if you blow that up a little. Okay, Vaughn had talked about the 6.4 million. The civic corridor, if you haven't driven it in a while and walked out there, you really should. The fields are phenomenal. I walked them again today. I hadn't seen them in about 5-6 weeks. There's an access road out there for 300, and that we have about 375,000 of asset value on. That's the road. It kind of goes from the library all the way out to the back there. The dog park, $800,000 for the full project there. The golf course property out there is not developed. It's $615,000 that we spent there. And the athletic complex, we spent $4.6 million. The check they got was for $3,500. So there you've got the whole picture as to the civic corridor and what we've spent. So when I talked about we're down at 400,000, but we get monies when properties trade over and stuff like that, you throw on Island Village, we will build a significant fund as we go into the future. So really when, I don't want to get too far ahead of us here, but when you hear the board later talk about timing, the $2.1 million is not an issue of here's $2.1 million or we'll never have money again. We're blessed. We home sell here, people want to live here, they pay a transaction fee when they do that, it will build up. We're just talking about a timing type transaction as we think about it. And can we go to the next one? And here, I want to go just a little further. You're going to hear me talk about some facts later when we start action item 1. It cost $4.6 million. When it was originally passed, it was passed for the fields of $2.8 million and $585,000 for the synthetic turf field. And the synthetic turf field is outstanding. If we have a hurricane, it comes through, that thing will be playable the next day. The 2 natural turf fields are going to wait 3 weeks like everything else that got water soaked with 8 inches worth of rain. So, you know, there we came in pretty, the real cost was about 3.6 versus the 3.4. And what we really had was we had to put in a lift station and stuff like that for building the whole thing out. Because the whole thing was built out so that the corridor could be done once, most efficiently, spend the money. And if we end up putting a community center or something else out there, you got all the proper infrastructure in place. Now, when we talk about back then they had talked at that board meeting about a wild guess of 500,000. The real number was 624,000 to get it completely done. But it looks great. 260,000 for what they called permits and other types of junk, and it came in at 246. We accidentally came in under budget. I don't know what happened. And equipment and okay, and then bonds line, they didn't budget anything, and it was 141. When you really get down to, okay, you got to put tables, you got to do this, you got to do that. So I want to be fair to people. That board back then was probably looking at $4.2 million. It came in at $4.6 million. You've seen the whole corridor now. This is kind of an important background, so I really wanted to refresh it again so that you really see the picture. Any other questions on the finances? All right, management report, Steve.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the first topic tonight. In case anyone hadn't heard, there's a little storm brewing out in the Atlantic Ocean right now. We are completely unsure which way it's gonna go. There's a couple different models. Some have them coming over the central part of the state, some have them going up north towards Georgia, South Carolina. But as we know as a community, we've been through these before. They don't scare us. We know how to plan and be prepared for those. So I want to ensure the community of Celebration that management team has initiated our hurricane prepare plan, and we have started our 96-hour approach system. We did have a workshop in July with the board to review our plan, so the board's well vested on the plan. And we're gonna have our first meeting of the CERT, Celebration Emergency Response Team, tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and it's gonna be a conference call. We also are closely connected with the Osceola County Emergency Operations Center. I have quite a bit of experience in Seminole County through the Emergency Operations Center and working those, so we have a good relationship with them, and we're ready to start those communications. And the most important information for immediately that you need to know is if you want to get your sandbags and get prepared, they're ready and they're available starting tomorrow morning. Sand was dropped off today. The location for the sandbags is going to be at the new athletic field complex on Lot D, on the open lot. So it'll get people off of Celebration Avenue, push them down that road, and then we'll have a system where folks can drive in one entrance and then pull out the next entrance and move along the way. It does take a little while though, because there is a county policy where they cannot fill your bags for you. In 2017, we had quite a few Celebration volunteers that came out and pre-filled bags, which was amazing. That could happen again, but be prepared if you're gonna come out that it could take you a little bit of time to get that. It's very hot outside. Bring water and be prepared for a little bit of a wait as you get your sandbags. Are there any questions as it relates to the storm and the preparation for that?
The only comment I would make is, it's August. Hurricane, I spent my entire life in the reinsurance industry insuring hurricanes, The busy season is late September and October, so I hope this is a good practice run as opposed to a real run, but we should be prepared and everybody should take them seriously. Anything else from the board on that item?
Okay, the other item that I want to discuss this evening was just a quick update on the Celebration Community Field Complex. We have had our soft opening. We have had some rentals and usage of those fields. And I believe on Monday night, we had our first Under the Lights rental of that facility. Our Parks and Recreation Manager, Nikki, put together a report that I'm just gonna quickly read for you all. We do have some groups that have already booked. We have Phoenix Lacrosse, which is our community partner for youth lacrosse. They booked their fall season from October through November. We have a private function that's booked for the 26th of August, which has already taken place this past Monday. Celebration Youth Soccer for the youth group is going to start on September 9th and run through November 7th. And then their spring season is to be determined at this point in time. Celebration Soccer Stars will be providing adult soccer programming there. They'll start on the 10th of September and run through the 19th of November with their spring dates to be determined. Orlando Lacrosse has booked a tournament on December 7th and December 8th, and flag football tournament on January 17th and through January 19th. And all these at our full rental rates of the facility.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Could you say it again slowly?
All of these bookings are at the full rental rate of the facility that was approved by the Recreation Committee and the CROA board. The Phoenix Lacrosse Group did utilize synthetic turfs for some scrimmage and practice games, and management has received nothing but compliments in regards to the field. The organization felt really relaxed and stress-free since they don't have to worry about lining the fields or setting up their own goals. Please.
Let me add one comment right here. For many in the community, there's been scuttlebutt going back about we were charging people to rent this and we were charging too much, et cetera, et cetera. We're working through the budget through 2020. I can tell you with absolute certainty that the cost of the athletic complex, just the fields and that surrounding area there, is well north of $200,000 a year. And Jack actually used that number earlier, and he was correct, if probably a little bit higher than he realizes even yet. We have an all-day budget meeting on September 6th where we're going to review it. So we've held very firm on renting these at the rates that were recommended by the Recreation Committee based upon studies of surrounding communities, light fields, and everything else, and what the real rate should be. And we're going through an adjustment period like these things are. But, you know, we've showed you it's an expensive asset. It's a beautiful asset. I strongly encourage you to look at it. But even upkeeping it on a run rate basis is expensive, and that's how we have to think about it.
September 16th is the budget meeting. Sorry, quick question.
What did I say?
6th.
Oh, 16, sorry.
Just a couple of comments just about the athletic complex, and several of us walked it today, preparation for tonight's discussion, and many of us walked it months ago and months before that and so forth. So I asked the staff a couple of questions. One is, how about the lightning protection system? And they said it's gone off several times, and people got off the fields, and then when the all clear sound came, they were back on the artificial turf within minutes, which is paralleling your point, and it's just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful facility.
Thank you. And I'll take this opportunity to explain the lightning prediction system very quickly. That system is reading electromagnetic energy in the air and in the ground, and when the energy level builds up to a certain point, it's alarming us of imminent threat to the within a 2-mile radius of that sensor. So what it's telling you, it's not saying maybe lightning will strike, it's saying with a 99.6% accuracy that lightning will be striking within the next 12 to 20 minutes, so take shelter. It's pretty loud, so if you hear it, it's probably a good idea to take shelter because lightning's coming. So just to finish the report that Nikki put together, the Celebration Soccer Stars have utilized the synthetic turf also, and this is the adult group. They also came out and helped put together the goals and had a nice little event with that. So we are very thankful to them for doing that. We have a Recreation Committee member, Joseph Lennon, who's in the audience tonight. He visited the complex on August 21st, and he sent an email to the Rec Committee and to the board that he's received compliments on how wonderful the fields are and how great the staff members have been throughout the process. And then the Orlando Lacrosse Tournament received a tour of the complex. Myself and Nikki took them on a tour, and they were impressed with the complex and eager to submit their reservations. It has a great opportunity for economic development, economic impact within Celebration. They want to stay in Celebration hotels, they want to eat in Celebration restaurants, and they want to utilize our fields as a rental rate. So it's nice and shiny and new. We're going to have to utilize the $200,000+ a year to keep it halfway nice and shiny and new, but so far so good. It's moving in the right direction.
Okay.
And the rest of my report is in the packet. Are there any questions for the Yellowstone folks that are here for maintenance? Anything for Tom? Okay, that's the end of the management report.
Okay. So we're going to go to action item 1. So let's start with, the motion is to accept or reject the Osceola County Agreement language approved by the County Commissioners on August 5th, 2019. Do I have a
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
And a second. Jackson's a second. Vanessa made the motion. Let me start with what I see as the timeline. I've got about 4 pages here. Not putting it up, you'll never follow 4 pages, and Vaughn's going to fall asleep if I do. So, but I want to hit the highlights, and then after we hit the highlights, we're going to go to board conversation, and again, board members are welcome to ask county staff and Commissioner Chowdhury any questions you want, and we appreciate you being here. In February of 2016, we actually started the engineering and design work for the ball field. So this is something that's been going on now for 3.5 years. The dog park grand opening was actually in March of 2017. So it was one of the first things that went out of the gate. In May of 2017, there was an initiation by the board to buy the golf course property, which is Lot D, which is the one I talked about on the financials earlier, and that was completed in November of 2017. So there's been a lot of activity. During the summer of 2017, meetings started with Jack and others on the board with the county, really going over the possibility of us getting $2.75 million towards a community center. That was to be $250,000 for design work and that, and $2.5 million for a community center. They went to a January 2018 board meeting that was discussed. At that point in time, they had issued an RFP to start the athletic fields, and in February of 2018, the decision was made to build the athletic fields. So when I talked earlier about the February 2018 board meeting and related the approximate numbers in, that's where that came from. So you kind of got perspective there. In March of 2018, you got 4 new board members, 4 of them who are setting up here. In April of 2018, we had a meeting to talk about the community center. At that point in time, there had been some preliminary draft language that had been shared with Jack and others on the previous board, and we were reviewing it, and we were also looking at funding. These things were not cheap. A community center is not cheap, so what is reality? And Vaughn, to his credit, came up with the idea of why don't we think about applying county funds to the athletic fields, which seemed more realistic from our perspective when we looked at our funding potential and still hopefully accomplishing the county's goals. So we had that conversation actually occur in May of 2018. Several of the people right out here in the audience were present. It was actually a very good meeting, very well received. We went to September of 2018, we actually broke ground on the athletic fields. So they've been going, really were built out in just a year, so it was a pretty successful build out. In November of 2018, we received comments back from the county. We had provided the county our own draft based upon the previous draft. It was reviewed for a couple, 3 months by the county. They came back, and we thought it looked pretty good. Spent a month reviewing things, but at our December workshop, we agreed that it made sense. It had 25-year language in it. The 25-year language included time frame for appropriate public usage, assets, and CROA upkeep. CROA did have a buyout at July 31st, 2031 for $1.1 million, and the county was going to put in $2.1 million, which was down from the original $2.75, but it was a different field and a different structure. At our December board meeting, we approved the county language, and that was December of 2018. Literally, we thought we were getting cash on February 18th, 2019. Then, we thought we were getting cash on March 18th of 2019. And then, in March of 2019, we got a red line that changed many, many pages. I will give Commissioner Chowdhury and her staff a ton of credit. They actually came here for a meeting that occurred on May 1st. That language was beat through. We came up with something, again, that had the 25 years that everybody thought was reasonable, and this board was the board voting on it, and we approved those languages in May of 2019 at a May 6th workshop. And then the summer happened, and on June 19th, then language came up about perpetuity, and Steve sent an email to Dave Tomac in the audience and others saying that the board had a serious problem with perpetual use issue. There were board meetings by the county in July, and at the August 5th, and at the July board meeting, I've watched it several times, you know, perpetual use was vaguely talked about. 99 years was talked about. Commissioner Chowdhury was not there. She was dealing with an illness. And we had 4 commissioners who I'm not sure was totally in our camp. At the August 5th board meeting, the 99-year language came through, and the perpetuity language came through. It was approved by the commissioners. It came to us, and that leads us to where we are tonight. Steve, put up so Peggy had some charts. I want to show you some charts. Or actually, I want to show you one picture. And I want to talk about where we as a board, I think, are really struggling. So this is the concession stand that you talked about. So if you go down here, you got the library, you got the dog park and everything, and you're coming up. You're coming up this road here, so you've got a gate here. This, you heard me talk about 624,000. That's here, parking lot, all this type of stuff. Goes through, here's field 1, natural turf, field 2, natural turf, field 3, synthetic turf. And I'm just trying to give you perspective. We have got a fence around the whole outside here. And the reason we have the fence is, we sat here and we said, realistically, this thing's costing $4.6 million and more than 200,000 a year in a run rate. This is an extremely valuable asset. If we have stuff out there and anybody can get to it, people will come do Hot Wheels on a celebration sign in the middle of this just because it's fun. And stuff like that. It's the real world. So we said security really matters. And when Commissioner Chowdhury was talking earlier, she was talking about the access path. Well, the access path has to be right here, all the way through to here, this route. So that's like the public areas. The problem becomes, that's all behind fences. This literally is turf field all the way here. When you get to this pavilion here, you can see here, the synthetic turf goes right to the pavilion. So as we were walking it today and people have looked at it before, we're literally sitting here saying, how in the heck do we let the public in here at all hours and not have them all over the field? Unless we hire a small army to protect the fields. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest here. So that, when you get down to the 99 issue, the reason we, as a board, have had the conversation, and Jack was on the board last year, had the 25-year issue is these fields we thought had a 25-year life. So when we were working with the county on that, that became how we came up with that. So now we've got 99 years here, or we've got perpetuity on the trail, and while I'll grant you, we're showing nice charts that don't have the trails go there, they all dealt with sidewalks. And one of the things that CCD is openly talking about is building a trail that goes from North Village into here. Well, it's gonna go down this sidewalk plan, and these are gonna become part of a county trail system in perpetuity that we as CROA residents have to keep up. So I wanna be careful here because we tried to give you a fair picture of the timeline, but this is where we come up with a big struggle because the $4.6 million came out of your pockets. Let's be perfectly clear. And the 200,000, your pockets, Jack.
It came out of new buyers' pockets.
Well, new buyers and other type of stuff, but, well, everybody bought here, let's be honest. And so that is the struggle that we're having here because it's almost, in my mind, as if we started with a contract that was for a community center that kind of got changed over for an athletic field, and now we have a contract that has no bearing in my mind for how the darn field was built. And I'm going to open it up here, but I think it's fair to the county people to say it would have probably, and I'm going to where I'm going to end up here, but I'll say it would probably have been a lot smarter to have Beth and Dave and a few people come out and walk the darn field with us and say, this is the reality of the situation, because the contract, in my opinion, does not reflect the reality. That is where we're ending up tonight. So with that as background, I'd like to open it up for board Q&A at this point in time. When board Q&A is over, then I'm going to individually call on every board member. Vanessa wanted to go first, so we're going to let her go first to do a vote at that point in time and explain their logic. But that's where we're at. Is that fair? So Q&A.
Is everybody okay if I make a statement really quick?
Go.
Okay. First, I'm a huge advocate for partnerships. When I was on the board before, that was one of my big initiatives, was to work with the county. I was involved when you were talking about redoing the streets. I'm an advocate for working with CDD. The school district, when they were going to be doing the K-8 and increasing that, I actually worked really hard to get the education task force together so we could work together as partners to make things work. It is imperative when we are in celebration and we have no control over what happens that we get involved in things where we can. Partnerships help to build that. I was really excited when I came on the board and I found, hey, this is going to be something that we're working towards. I was happy when I was able to vote yes for the 2.1 million for the 25 years. I think it was going to be a great partnership. I was very disappointed with the verbiage change, and I'm going to read what the original was, just because I don't know who all actually knows what the original was. We voted on in
July.
Was it July?
Mhm.
Okay. Upon completion of the Celebration Park improvements, CROA shall retain sole ownership of the community park and must ensure appropriate public usage and access to the facility as defined in Section 7 for a period of no less than 25 years from the year to date of public opening. The change to that, upon completion of the community public improvements, CROA shall retain sole ownership of the community parks and must ensure appropriate public usage and access to the facilities as defined in Section 7 for a period of no fewer than 99 years from the date of public opening. Any part of the county trail system that runs through the park shall be accessible by the public in perpetuity, consistent with county operation hours for trails. So where we were in a nice mutual benefit, we were okay even opening it up, when there was a conversation at one point in time of, strictly District 1, well, we really want to open it up to the county. I'm like, we're not really going to have people coming and showing IDs anyway, so it's not a big deal moving it from a District 1 to a whole county. The biggest issue is we are actually now having to operate under your hours in perpetuity with a trail system that we don't even have identified in the contracts. So because of that, I'm extremely uncomfortable with going in this direction. However, I would love to have this edited if we can go forward. I would love, if we can edit this, I would be all in favor of bringing something like that back to the board. So.
I said July, it was May 6th.
That's what I thought it was in May. It was right after
So I
was there.
apologize
Thank
there.
you. Thank you for letting me go first, fellow board members.
Other comments from the board? Other questions?
Other questions?
Yeah. Or comments?
No, I'll just make a comment, or are we just doing questions? Comments fine?
Either.
I was no questions.
Well, we worked really hard. The board worked, long hours and days. We worked with the commissioner, we worked with Beth and David. Sat down in your office, you came here. We did a lot of work on this, and it took a lot of work to get the residents by the 25. That wasn't easy, but we managed, we explained it, and I think it was a good deal. And then, as Vanessa said, then it went to 25, went to 99 years, and then on August 5th, at the commission meeting, when it was voted upon, Commissioner Janer, threw in the trails as she seconded the motion to approve the agreement with the understanding that as you know, Commissioner, that it had to include the trails in perpetuity. And the agreement originally said CROA would set the opening and closing hours, and it was set in the commission meeting, and I think it was the July 8th meeting. Maybe you can clarify, maybe it was the county attorney that actually said that that CROA would be able to close the gates if the trail did run through there. Wasn't that said, Dave? And we could close it. But then on August 5th at the meeting, it changed from our operating hours to the county hours. And so with these changes getting thrown in there, we started really having a lot of trouble with it. We couldn't the agreement just got it collapsed in on itself. And it's our understanding, or my understanding, that these terms were non-negotiable anymore. Is that what everybody else is understanding? The terms of the agreement were non-negotiable.
I'll let Commissioner Chowdhury come up, but we signed off at the workshop in May 6th, and we have had no input since then. So come on up.
Thanks again for those questions and comments. So the board as a whole, we're a 5-member board, and we've agreed the contract as you see it in front of you. So yes, those changes were made as you were right. I'm not even sure what dates, but yeah, the dates that you had commented. The comments were made by the county commission as to the trail accessibility, and it was because the comment came from that commissioner because we're thinking of doing the overall connectivity within our county. If I can grab that, because I wanted to clarify too, because I know you had asked about this. I'm going to grab this real quick again.
Oh.
So right now, we do not have, and any staff could help me as well, just to make sure I'm saying this correctly. I don't want to, and I'll show the board too.
It's
you
fine.
have my-
No, please, it's fine.
Okay, so here we have the red, which we've already said is already a trail in Osceola County, right? This is the green that we're going to be doing the connection. Now, if CROA board, there was a connector from, David, from here to here, correct? That's the connector that was once talked about with the other
CDD.
board, CDD, about potentially connecting to this trail so that not just Celebration folks, but also the folks from the community that are riding their bikes would be able to then cut through here as well. So that is what the conversations is when we talk, you mentioned the trail. So that is why that language was there, is because if, and when, if ever, I don't know, but when that does happen, because right now it's not in the plans, as you can see right now in the drawings of the county. I'm not sure how quickly the Celebration wants to move forward with it, but it's not in the plans now. But if this ever does connect, then that, the contract says, then it's gotta be available in the same time hours that all the other trails in around the county is open. And so if you see, look at it logically, it's because if someone starts riding their bike here and they're coming through and they have to, I don't know, cut through here for whatever reason to get back here, then that's why that connection of the hours. Andrew Maya is our attorney. I just want to make sure that the language I'm telling them is exactly what the language states in the contract.
That's right, exactly what you said.
Okay, so, and that's why that trail language is there, because this doesn't have anything to do really with the trail system as far as like the connection to that field.
Okay, but then following through on what I think you're saying here, we know that a lot of that trail system is sidewalks and stuff.
Yes.
And different things. And there has been a lot of talk about a North Village Trail over here. So if that trail comes through, pick your place. All of a sudden, this sidewalk becomes the logical place.
And you know what, your comments are spot on. Should you be concerned because now you have to figure out how you're gonna put the gates? Well, of course, like, do you wanna do it different? What's the cost of changing it? How would you control it? But guess what? That is a determination of CROA board, because that is considered on the county side, that's the private part, right? So we don't have that control, it's the CROA board. But again, I don't know how that would be, obviously, all
So,
this would
Commissioner-
be public because they got to the pavilion.
Commissioner, you're okay with us spending more money because it's our decision then? Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
The agreement with the $2.1 million.
Checks off to the Wildwood Driver.
They have music. That's great.
Only 25 dollars.
What I'm saying is, I understand the dilemma of moving a gate if you need to, if this agreement were to move forward, but the $2.1 million agreement is, from my board, what they're saying is, if we're putting the $2.1 million into this project, the accessibility to the public has to be there, that was mentioned, which is the pavilion, like we stated, and this when it's open and available and selling stuff for people to go buy.
So, just to go back, and I agree with everything that you just said, and just to reiterate what I said, which is where the dilemma comes, is this is a $5 million property with a couple $100,000 a year or more of upkeep that is very tightly secured, and once we make this public and we make this part of the trail system, for 99 years or forever, we've lost control. And that's how I feel, because, and you and I have had a couple of conversations. She's very well-intentioned and I'm very well-intentioned, and who's gonna be in our jobs 10 years from now? And you know, when you talk about 99 years and when you talk about forever, that matters. I mean, I don't wanna miss, that is the contention here.
And one of the comments, a resident also asked me in Celebration, well, isn't it true that Osceola County already has property technically in Celebration with right-of-ways, with sidewalks, with roads and so forth? And my answer was, well, yes. I mean, you're not a gated community, so Osceola County does have that relationship with Celebration, and I thank you for so much for even considering partnerships, because at the end of the day, that's always great to grow in a community. So we're already partnered, and I understand that perhaps it was mentioned that, a board member perhaps have said things they shouldn't have said. Unfortunately, that's beyond my control, but at the end of the day, I can tell you that myself, I'm a huge supporter of trying to do this partnership, and it's because I think it's just one step in the right direction, where in the future, we could perhaps come with other types of partnerships that could work even better. But this is just one step in the right direction, in my opinion. And yes, my board voted the way that the contract, you see it. It was that compromise, of course, that I had to make. And you're right, 100%. No one knows what's going to happen in a year. No one knows what's going to happen in 10 years. We are probably all not going to be here in 99 years, right? So that's probably not going to happen. But at the end of the day, I know the majority on my board can make changes, and perhaps the majority on your board can make changes. So it's a two-way street, and at the end of the day, we would want to have always a great partnership, And so that was the intent, honestly, and I understand that there's some challenges, but that is what we have in front of us today.
And Commissioner Chowdhury also told me last night she had received a question from a resident or two about the $2.1 million, and if we didn't take it, would we have a $2.1 million bill coming? The answer is no. We have paid for the parks in full. It's all paid. It's just a question of whether we get a reimbursement, but we have paid for everything. We have funding to proceed, and we have a plan to proceed. This is just a question of whether we go with this agreement and get the funds
2.1 million
or
kind of
not.
back in
So
your pocket.
But I wanted to answer that because it was a good question you had received.
Yes, and
Another question,
residents,
too. There was another question
I'm
from
sorry,
residents.
yeah, residents were asking those specific questions
Oh,
about
yeah.
fees, whether they're increased, stuff like
She
that.
had the question about, do other counties have this model? And that would be a good one for you to answer.
So, yeah, so to my knowledge, other counties in Florida, maybe my attorney can answer that, or Susan, do you know if we've looked that up? No? Not that we know of. I mean, I'm happy to maybe look it up and see. But I know this is a first of its kind in this general format, and especially for District 1, to answer your question. And again, there is also, and I don't know, no one mentioned, I know this board, but, actually we did, there is an exit clause in the contract, and you all probably familiar with it, but there is an exit clause, so if by any chance you try this out and you realize, I think it's 10 years, is it, the exit?
12 years.
12 years, okay. If in 12 years you see that it's not working, out of the 2.1 million, you'll have return, I think, 1.1 million, because it would be half of that, and then you convert the fields into private. But again, this is all the decision of the residents, the CROA board, and I will respect any other questions too about it?
I actually want a quick clarification.
Yes.
So I guess the specific question was, if we did a counter, is that something that we could do? I mean, it sounded like you said that the kind of, it was kind of dead. If we'd said no, is that something that we can do? I mean, the reality is, this verbiage, giving control to the county of our hours, isn't going to work, period. I would love to say that it will. I'm one vote, so just to clarify that, I'm one vote. I can't see where, especially after walking it through today, we have a gate there, and then we have another gate, and then you have the trails over here, where you have the pavilion, which is all supposed to be open access, as well as the bathrooms. I don't see a way where we can actually leave that open.
Can I just add the one more statement to that? There are trails in other counties that are open from dusk to dawn.
Right.
But that's not where.
But what happens if we don't have anything there? Then we have to be open, is my point.
And
Yeah.
have it stay.
I'm sorry, you're obviously here to answer my question, or
So,
hopefully.
under my Osceola County attorney, you have three options. You can accept the agreement as is, you could reject it, or you could counter proposal. Whether that would go back to our board, I guess, is up to the county manager and the commissioners, and whether or not they'd be willing to accept it would be up to the county commission.
Okay.
As a whole.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I'll follow, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kip.
Just one or two other things. It was just my understanding that the terms were non-negotiable, so this agreement, as it's written, I guess, is not negotiable from what I understand. I'd like to personally see it buried in Founder's Park right now and then start over again with something new, which I would think would be a great idea. I'd still like to see something happen. Just, not this one. Maybe do some other type of arrangement, but start over again. And I'm looking at the 2.1, and I'm looking at the run rate for the fields. You're talking, I think, well north of 200,000 a year. So you figure that in, you're talking a maximum of the 2.1 covering 10 years, and probably closer to 8 years. And then after 8 years, the money's gone. And then after that, we still have the obligation to 99 years and perpetuity. So that's one of my issues as well.
Do you have a comment? Go ahead.
And the other question I have, maybe Beth or
Well, let Beth answer the one you got, and then go with your second question.
Thank you so much. Beth Knight, Deputy County Manager, Osceola County. Thank you so much for allowing us to be able to be part of this discussion this evening, and congratulations on clearly a beautiful project. You know, we'll have an obligation, if you wanted to amend it, to take it back to the board. I do think that there is some misunderstanding about the trail, and what Commissioner Chowdhury meant by, it's totally up to CROA if you wanted to connect to the county's trail system. There's nothing that says you have to. Now, if you did, it would certainly present some things for us to work through, but you would not have to connect to it. That's solely your discretion. And that was part of the board's discussion, and that's why they wanted to capture that. The other thing is, I want to make sure that when we're talking about the 2.1 million, this is coming from Parks Impact Fee Fund, so it's not like ad valorem, which we have a lot more leeway on how that's spent. Parks Impact Fee Funds are very particular. And the 2.1 million is going towards what we're calling the public access. It's not attached to the ball fields. So the 99 years is not attached to the ball fields. The 99 years is attached to the public access. That's the intent. Reading through the agreement again, I can certainly see how there could be confusion, and maybe there's some clarity that we can bring to it, but that was the intent of the county's arrangements for the $2.1 million worth of funding.
didn't Commissioner Janer say that part of her reason for seconding the motion on August 5th was to make sure that the trails would be able to go through there and be open on county hours?
If there are trails.
If there are trails.
Right.
So the agreement, we could, then what you're saying is in an agreement, we could put in there that we are not going to allow a trail to go through, and that would be acceptable?
That you would,
I mean,
that it
is that
wouldn't
what you're
connect.
saying, it'd be okay?
Yes, and furthermore, just so that we're clear, even if we were to connect, it is the county's responsibility to maintain the trail system, period.
Yeah,
Wouldn't be anybody else's.
I just have to stop you for a second here. There is so much ambiguity in the writing of this contract. I appreciate your legal prowess, but this agreement cannot be enforced by the parole statements that are made here tonight. In other words, the verbal statements made by staff or the commissioner have no legal bearing whatsoever, in my view. And therefore, for us to make a decision to approve an agreement that says, well, it could be something different, and it could be changed, and it could be amended, it is not something that is fiduciary, is not responsible for us from a fiduciary standpoint. And I appreciate that everyone's operating in good faith, but the reason that we draft contracts is to avoid ambiguity when good faith goes away. And this agreement is loaded with ambiguity that could be interpreted reasonably to be very onerous on this community. And I'm surprised that no one from staff or the commissioner has acknowledged that. And so I think Vaughn's question was a simple one, and that is, can we go back and renegotiate this? And if the answer from the commissioner and her staff is, go ahead and try, well, let's go ahead and try. But that answer is not the same as approve this agreement tonight in its current form.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that there is some clarity that needs to be provided to the agreement. And I think what I'm saying from a staff perspective, that we would be willing to work through those issues and take it back to the county manager's office and the commissioners and discuss it with them. So I'm agreeing with you that I think that there is some clarity that needs to be brought to the agreement.
Do you have comments?
I have a couple of comments, and it's kind of going all over, but I think everybody's touched on it, on a few things. So first, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you all for coming here, not only the residents of the community, but the county staff. This is huge. It's not a common thing for county staff to attend an HOA meeting, because at the end of the day, that's what we are. But it is much appreciated, and this potential partnership is huge for the county and for HOAs within the county. So what Celebration is known for is kind of starting trends and doing something new and different and outside of the box, and doing the unknown, and succeeding at it. Now, I'm very, we walked today, Brian and Vanessa and myself, we walked at once. I know David walked later on. We had to separate to not meet quorum. But there are concerns between the language in the contract and what's physically possible. The two of them don't really mesh. So it seems as though there might be just communication issues. And it naturally happens, because sometimes I may say a sentence one way, and the way you listen to it and understand it is different from what the fact is. I may have said it wrong, you may have understood it differently, whatever the case is. Now that we have a structure that's built, we could use that to our advantage. We could use that to our advantage and say, not this is what it's going to be like, this is what it is. Here's where the property is, here's where the sidewalk is, here's where the field is. And I said it today when I was standing with Brian, if I'm standing here, whose property would I be on? If I'm standing here, can I stand here as an Osceola resident? Can I stand here as a CROA resident? What is the position? And I think it all comes down to communication and confusion for the residents of the community, for residents outside of Celebration. And if the option is there to further discuss, I think we're harming our community and our residents for the ability to potentially discuss further. As this agreement sits today, if I had to go ahead and say yes or no, I have to say no. It's not possible. But if we have the opportunity to continue that conversation in a timely fashion, not like it has been, I'm all for it. Go back to December, if we can start there, if we can meet somewhere in the middle. If we have to do these type of meetings, your office, our office, whatever it is, to sit here and actually pound it out, then let's try. And I'm not saying nobody's trying, but I think we're just speaking two languages. And if we could table it and set a timeline, a realistic timeline, and say by the end of this year, a decision needs to be made. But to throw away the money is difficult. To open up the gates to everybody and cover the expense of it is difficult. There's no right answer. And somebody here is gonna like it, somebody here is gonna hate it. But I think it's because we don't actually know all the facts yet. That's my comment there. So if we're able to table it, that's what I'd like to do, reasonably.
Just a second, just so you know, I've been not deliberately being rude. I'm actually communicating with our board member that's on our speakerphone, making sure she's attached and not attached. And Mary Ann, you'd like to speak?
Yes, thank you. My comments, I'm going to keep them simple and brief. A lot of what I wanted to say has actually already been expressed by my CROA board colleagues. For those, I don't know who's in the audience because I can't see you, but I have a long-term history as a not-for-profit professional, so turning away money is completely against, it's not in my DNA, right? But I also have had benefit of having engaged in many contracts and agreements over the course of my career with municipal, county, state, and federal government organizations, and I have to say that the language in this agreement concerned me greatly. The in perpetuity, what I felt was kind of a loss of control, potentially, of our property, and I understand that, if the trail goes through, we might be able to make this decision or not. It just seems to me, I'm going to keep it brief, it's, for me, a problem with the current language. I would have to say no because I feel like the risks outweigh the potential benefits, the unintended consequences, and the risks in the language to us in protecting our assets in our community. And the term in perpetuity is a very, that's an intense term in any contract. So for me, it put simply, and to echo the things that my colleagues have said, I feel in the current language of this agreement, I find it very concerning and feel like it leaves too many openings for negative unintended consequences for our community.
Thank you.
And
Then,
that's all from me.
thank you. But then my question is, we've been to this renegotiation phase. This would be we did it twice, the county did it a third time. If we went to a fourth time, what would we do differently to not get here again? That's, I guess, would be my question then for any of the staff. I mean, I've heard stories of some of you doing yeoman work behind the scenes, and I truly appreciate that. So where I'm coming from is, what would we do differently that wouldn't get us to the same answer? So that's my question for any of you.
Prior to that, can I say, and I said this to both of you today, if I understand the way the county works in celebration worlds, if we can relate, is similar to the CCDD. Sunshine laws prohibit the commissioners from speaking to one another, which is different from the way a CROA board operates. So what happens is they each see it one time. And if I understand correctly, staff will go ahead and go to each commissioner and get their feedback, consolidate their feedback, but can't share what the other commissioner said. So now you have 5 different versions on the commissioner side growing together, creating this whirlwind of opposition, really. It just doesn't make sense. And then they say, hey, Crow, how do you like it? And we're saying, what is this? You got this, you got that, you got the other. So for the residents to understand how the county works, now, was that the first time that the commissioners as a whole really discussed it? Really discussed it?
Yeah, so the commissioners as a whole actually discussed it twice on record, because thank you, Kevin, for explaining that we are a Sunshine Board, so unfortunately I can't speak to other commissioners unless it's in public format. And so yes, we only discussed it twice. The first time that it was discussion, you guys know I was absent due to illness in my family, but, and that is where the concerns, where all the commissioners finally were able to put in their input and their concerns about the contract. And then the following meeting was when I was present, of course, defended the contract, defended the great community, and said we wanted to move forward the partnerships with the understanding of those 2 changes to compromise.
And this was May and July?
That was
July and August.
July and August.
July and August, yeah. So that's how it works. So essentially what you're saying is correct, so that would.
So really, all the commissioners saw it July.
And then came back.
It was on the agenda, and I believe it was delayed.
Well, that was the time I was absent. I
Is that the
requested
one?
for it to
Okay.
be, yeah, if it was pulled, I requested for it to be postponed till the following meeting when I could attend.
Got it.
So let me ask you an honest question. You've heard all of our comments tonight. You've talked with several of us before this meeting,
Yes.
which I very much appreciate. Are we a bridge too far apart? Or is there any way to bridge the difference, understanding that I think the chances of getting a yes vote with 99 years in perpetuity is darn near 0? Just being honest, and we haven't said it, but everybody here has got a ton of emails and a ton of phone calls and text from a lot of the community. So when we,
And of course, you
so
guys
when we speak,
represent-
we're speaking for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, and that's
And-
totally understandable.
I think the real question is, this deal, no. Everybody is nodding their head. Or is there room to try to come up with, we had said yes to 2 deals.
And is that a question for Peggy or county manager?
Anybody who wants to answer.
She knows the other commissioners as well, so.
The commission votes as a whole, and so I will never know what other commissioners' thought processes are. I can tell you the day that this happened and we all voted, the compromise was made that 99 years and the trails in perpetuity in case there were ever trails that connected to the community Osceola County trails. I always want to make sure I say it right. So if CROA or CDD connects to Osceola County trails, that it would make sense that a commissioner would say, well, wouldn't that operate the same as all the other county trails that we maintain and that are open at those hours? That's why the perpetuity had to come in. As far as the 25 to 99 was, again, and I read in the speech that I read, was the compromise so that the commissioner that had the concern where if that public space wanted to be used by others that contribute from the 2.1 million, that they would be able to use it, and so therefore that's where that came about. So, and again, I can't know honestly until we have the conversation, or if it even comes up, because at the end of the day, like Beth had explained, the staff reviews it, county manager and our county deputy, they go to the commissioners, like you explained, and I don't know what the results will be of that, or when it would be on the agenda.
When we came up with the May approval, Tom Slayton, which for everybody is our external counsel, worked with a lawyer, maybe you, I don't know, but someone from the county, and came up with that draft, which was the redo of the December one that we got comfortable with. So I think the real question in my mind, and I'm looking for feedback here, is, that May draft is the one that had been actually negotiated by the lawyers independent of the CROA board and the county, back and forth. And if that's a no-go and this is the only go, and that's reality, then that's what we need to be told.
Can I make a suggestion? I think, like I said, I don't want to walk away from $2.1 million. I think, however, I am not in a position to be able to accept it under the terms that are here. My suggestion kind of links along with what Kevin was saying, and that was, we have a motion on the table to either accept or deny this.
Mm-hmm.
Make a second motion to continue working with the county to see what we can come up with. That way, this is done, we know where we're at, and if we come up with something else, then we come up with something else.
Okay, well, but where I'm struggling with your motion is I was actually at the meetings in early 18, researched the ones before. Several of us have already been down this path twice. I want to know why the heck the third time would be different.
Well, and that's why I'm saying, let's get rid of this one, because we know this is not going to work. And then if we want to, I just.
And
all the
again, our
commissioners
county,
just got involved.
and our county staff mentioned it already, the language, maybe it's you folks talking again and talking about the language and then bringing it back. Again, I don't, like to your point, I always love to try again if we could, but of course it's the discretion of this board. And I'm happy to, if the other board members agree, put it on the agenda and discuss it. I mean, again, I'm one member, as you guys all are individually, and we vote as one vote. And I'm hoping that, conversations could happen if
Did that
need be.
help, though, like on the picture and where I was actually kind of
I was
showing?
over at the field, so I know the.
I mean, because I'm sitting here, so I'm happy to call the first vote, and I'm happy to, we can go with fresh eyes. We can go with Kevin and Vanessa. I don't care if you want to negotiate and see if you can come up with a better answer. I think we said it, but it.
I appreciate the sentiment. I think that the first vote is going to be probably a rejection of this agreement, so that it is clear to staff and clear to the 5 commissioners, including those commissioners who thought that Celebration doesn't deserve county funds, that this is an unacceptable agreement, and that redlining your own document repeatedly without negotiating with us is not something that will ultimately be successful. So to Brian's point, if all we're going to do is go round that circle again, okay, I don't want to give up $2.1 million either. Nobody in this room, on this board, wants to do that. But frankly, there's only so much bandwidth that you have, Commissioner. There's only so much bandwidth your staff has. There's only so much bandwidth that this CROA board has. And if we're just repeating the same craziness, expecting a different result, then we're the ones that are insane. And so I really hope that you come away tonight with a clear understanding of our concerns, and that you become an advocate, not in word but in deed, that you're willing to go out and push for this agreement. And your fellow commissioners saw this agreement many times before the meeting, the first meeting was on the board, because it was pushed off of the agenda multiple times. It was put on and pushed off. And board members saw that, commissioners saw that. And so to suggest that they never saw it until 6 weeks ago is disingenuous. It's not really accurate. And so I really hope that our going forward will give you at least some leverage, though you may not appreciate it, but some leverage to go back to your fellow commissioners and to your staff and say, you can't do this.
So, to answer to your comment, first and foremost, no disrespect, but I have been advocating for this contract for quite some time, just as this CROA board respectfully have been. So I think it's a mutual endeavor that we have taken for a very long time. And as you know, as a board member, things do happen where sometimes things have to come off the agenda and things have to be worked out. You have the advantage on your board that you're not a sunshine board. So some of you may speak. I wish sometimes we could do the same because sometimes things could be fixed that way. But of course, those rules are in place for a reason as well. So I understand that. But I can tell you that myself, and I want to thank my staff, they have been huge advocates for this community all this time since I've been in office, if not even before. And I can tell you with this contract, even before the change of the board, we have always been talking about opportunities, partnerships, and making sure that my board understands that this community is just as important as other communities, which is why I always advocate and say that celebration is Osceola. And so I will continue to say that. So I will continue advocating like I always have been. It is the discretion of this board to say, we would like to counter offer, or we would like to say no to this, and this is what we would like, and see what the board would like to decide. Of course, things could be brought back. That is going to be the direction of my staff, but again, I'm a 5-member board. And so there's so much, as you stated originally, that I can do. And I'm sure if there's a disagreement in this CROA board and you're 1 member as well, there's also so much you can do. So at the end of the day, I think working collaboratively is always the best way. Having open communication, of course, I want to continue. And of course, I want to make sure that we have a partnership. And if this is not of your liking due to perhaps some language, the perpetuity thing and the 25 to 99 year was clear that my other commissioners preferred that. That's the truth of it, and that's what they stated on record. As far as a commissioner saying something that perhaps they shouldn't have said, that's unfortunate, something I can't help, It's not something I can do. It's like, it is what it is, but I'm constantly going to continue advocating. So I'm happy to whatever discretion this board wants to do, of course, we'll go ahead and try to see what happens.
David?
I'm going to go in a couple of different tracks. From my experience over the last many months, working on this and working with this board and working with the county staff, collaboration has been the message.
Thank you.
And I'm hearing that tonight. I think through all of this process, Beth, Peggy, Dave, we wanted to get to yes. The aim was to get to yes. Mm-hmm. And I go back to the very first issue, I was not here then, of the Celebration Journal, when they said, one of the writers said, we are stronger and we are better when we work together for a shared common purpose. We want to have a collaboration and we want to get to yes. I think also what I'm hearing and how I feel is the language of what we received 2 months ago, or whatever was voted on in the last month by the county board, feels unacceptable, at least speaking for myself, who represent our HOA, our celebration residents, a subset of the county.
Of course.
And we have a different issue. The money is important, but we have been a pay-as-you-go community. We don't have to do that, I don't believe. But we have chosen to be a pay-as-you-go community. Brian and Vaughn shared tonight. We have money in the bank for the future assets as we build them. That will be there. It's not $400,000 isn't going to build much of a community center, except to be on
Playground and artisan.
a playground, a trailer on wheels, but I don't think that would pass muster. Thank you very much. Well, anyway, I won't get any knots. When I was sitting on the board, when the initial funding was approved, and I remember information coming out that day, and I thought that was a rush to go ahead and prove it because we didn't have all the facts. Some things were changing. And it ended up costing us more for the beautiful complex that we do have, but at the expense of some other priorities in the community. Those priorities are urgent. We're an aging population, we're a growing population. We need attention to our adults and to our aging adults and the intergenerational things that we want to do. We need something, and so the money, yes, we would love it. But I think it comes down to a couple of things just to wrap this up. My concern, and as I've heard already and as I felt on my own, it was about the process and some things sent unilaterally near the end. A lot of great collaboration over the time, but some concerns, a lot of concerns about that. And then the other piece is 25 years. Yeah, I can see maybe 25 more years of life. We'll see. But 25 years is manageable. But 99 years, I don't know if soccer's going to be something we want to be doing. I don't know. I don't know if fields are what we want to do, or outdoor fields in summer is something that we want to do. So the needs may be different, and I feel that it's a feeling, whether it's, and it needs to be very, very clear, and I'm not sure that it is yet, that we retain, this board is in charge of our HOA dollars, so that we retain full ownership and control of the decisions for the community, and knowing that others will be in our seats. So to me, it boils down to, do we vote yes or no on this? And I think, and the other members can disagree, but I think the message is clear. We want to try to get to yes, but we can't with this agreement. And what that translates to for me is, we vote tonight, it's probably gonna not be thumbs up. Then it's up to the county staff to try to, if you really want to make it work, try to make it work. Not for us to come up with I'm proposing not a counter proposal. Have the county try to figure that out, county staff, sorry, or
Well, and again,
and then whether it's for the fields or for something else where it's a real win and something that we can again sell to our residents and support for our residents. So.
And again, the staff report to the commissioners, our county manager reports to us, so ultimately, final decisions are by the commission, and that's why I just want to, but, and of course, our staff's always worked so hard to put many agreements together in different formats, so I know that they always try their best in doing so. Again, it's the discretion of the board as you guys choose to proceed, and then we go from there. But again, it's going to be a decision of what 5 commissioners would like to do and not do, so.
Right, understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank the county manager's staff. I mean,
Absolutely.
it was fun working with all of you. I mean, it was enjoyable. I was in government in Miami-Dade County for 30 years, and this was more fun. I mean, it was really enjoyable. I mean, they went as far, I mean, the county attorney's office went, they changed an ordinance to try to make this work for us. Yes. They did a lot, but in the end, once it left the county manager's office and went to the commission, we began having some problems. So, you know, I'd like to see something down the road worked out. This, I don't see working out the way the language is right now. Too many loopholes and just too many ambiguities for me.
Okay, I'm calling the vote. The motion was to accept or reject the Osceola County Agreement language approved by the county commissioners on August 5th, 2019. All in favor, say aye.
Who's,
You have to ask if you want us to accept or reject.
We have to
Yes.
do one or the other.
who is going to say you want to, who will accept?
Yeah, that's
Unless
what
you
the
want to
motion
pull
says.
both motions.
You can say yes, and you got to accept and reject.
I read the wrong one. I read an old motion.
No, that was the motion.
That was the motion.
And you just have to get either accept or reject, or you have to pull both motions and
Just say,
start back over.
just say accept or reject.
Accept. All who say accept.
Could you just poll the board, please? As a matter of privilege, would you poll the
David,
board?
accept or reject?
Reject.
Jackson,
Reject.
Vanessa.
Reject.
Brian is a reject.
As it sits, reject.
Reject.
Marianne?
My turn?
Yep.
Good, go ahead.
I reject it.
Okay, so it is a unanimous rejection as written. We will gladly talk to you if you believe there is any chance of getting commissioners to change their opinion from what's written here. Because we had the one in May that we approved, this changed without our input for the reasons which we've stated about, so let us know if there's any chance for change. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let us know when you're ready. Okay, everyone, we are live.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Just got to report that the audio is not that great. It's pretty garbled, so I don't know. If that was temporary or.
Did you hear that? The audio there.
Audience, we're starting.
Meeting's in progress.
Without
Meeting's in progress.
Without objection,
Meeting's in progress.
are there any items in action items 2 through 19 that, if there's no objection, I would ask that we simply approve them unless someone wants to talk about one of these items?
If I could take a moment, just double check.
I've read them all. I've read them all, and they all seem.
I want to talk about item 2 separately, just to make one comment. It's going to be quick, but I'd like to do 2 separately, and that's it for me. Blue Sage, can we talk about Blue Sage separately? Sure. Those are the 2 items, item 2 and Blue Sage. 12 and 13, I'd like to pull 2, and 12 and 13. Anybody else got anything?
I have a very brief question on 9, but I'm sure that'll be easy.
Okay, we'll
So
do 9.
9, 12, 13, are both.
Well, and then, I
Do
think
we
I'm,
do,
I
do
think I'm okay
we do
with
the ones at the end separate, 15 through 19
I mean,
separate?
we can put 9 in it, and I can just ask a quick question, that's all. It's one motion.
Okay.
Do you mind if we ask the question now?
Just,
Yeah, I'm just curious what it is. Is that a new thing? That was in the original contract for the IDGB?
We had talked when we actually did the approval about them having a monthly support for you. I remember we
I
had
just want-
that conversation.
That's what I think it is. I just wanted to
I'm
clarify.
assuming this monthly support we talked about.
This is for just monthly maintenance of the website. Right now, they deliver a website, we are maintaining it, but this goes above and beyond. We're talking about backups, we're talking about security, there is just everything that comes with
And this
maintaining.
was a similar cost as in the past? With the previous
Correct.
website? Okay,
Yes,
that's
yes.
perfect. Thank you.
We've
Okay,
had-
just wanted to clarify.
So let me just make my comments, and then maybe we can do the whole thing. On item 2, we're approving $29,000 for the CCD road. I just want it stated publicly that in our budget next year, we will have $246,000 in round numbers, which will be the final payment. When we do the budget conversation, you'll see in the working capital roll forward, that's expenditure of the $246,000. So I'm just making that statement for the board and for the public.
And it's, I know that we've had that conversation in the past, that the payment that you have here was not a payment of choice, it was an assessment from the development district, that they
For
could
the
build the
road.
road.
Right, over a 5-year period.
Correct.
And we got the balloon payment in the 5th year, which is 2020. So,
Well, then, yeah, I would make a motion to approve action items 2 through 11 and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
got a motion, second?
second.
All in favor, or any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, no.
Quick question. Jackson, you might be able to help me on 14. Is there anything that CROA as a whole could do to help with that, those chairs? Is there something that we need to review our block party kit and potentially make that available more often?
No, these are matching chairs for the black chairs that are already in the clubhouse.
Are these the ones inside the actual, okay, never mind, I'm sorry, I thought they were
No,
temporary.
thank you. I'm sure they would say, give us the money, but
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, those passed. So on 12 and 13,
Yes.
we had discussed Blue Sage, we had tabled it, you had done some emails with me, so I just really wanted to brief the rest of the board on the 2-stage resolution and everything, so everybody's up to speed. So if you
Okay.
can spend a couple minutes on that, that would be
Sure,
wonderful.
we talked about a little bit at the workshop, but Blue Sage has had the challenge of having enough funds in their reserve to pay for the roof replacement and a roofing consultant. The roofing consultant wasn't previously incorporated into the reserve study, but it is a good practice in this field to make sure there's someone overseeing the project, that the project is done correctly, that the county codes are met, and all the fulfillments for warranty are done. So it took us some time to try to come up with a scenario. The bids, I think I set it out to 12 different contractors. We only received 3 maybe. They were all too high. One of them even withdrew. So we tried to come up with some different alternatives and how to get their roofs on with the money they had available. The final idea we had was to do the townhomes themselves and hold off on the garages. It's the same color shingle. This is where people live. They have their valuables, their families. This is the priority. We don't have any leaks in the garages. They can still afford the consultant, and they can still do the gutters. So these 2 proposals are to recommend Stratus Roofing. They have done some repairs at Blue Sage so far with success. The owners have been very happy. I've even had some say, I hope you have them bid. They did bid on just the townhomes, and they were the lower of the bids that I received. And I didn't receive much.
So we had some local residents. People are happy now.
Yes, for all the communication that I've received, there are 12, so I haven't heard from all of them. And then the second one is for the roofing consultant.
All right, motion to accept those 2?
So moved.
So we got Kevin as the motion and Vaughn is the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
If I
for.
could-
got those
if I could
done.
say one other thing while Suzanne was up here. We approved item 6A on the Cleveland South Village service area. And I just want to thank Susanna and.
You beat me to it.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a really big deal. I know Kevin wrote this too. It's a big deal to get a service area committee after 2 decades of trying. And I hope it's the first of many. And I'm really excited to work with those folks. So, nice job.
We are too.
Your
Yes, we're
efforts
happy for
were
him.
huge, everybody at management, so thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's going to be beneficial for everybody.
Okay, and last item is board comments. I have something, but does anybody else have anything first?
Depends on what you say.
Well, we have the budget workshop on September 16th. We spend pretty much a full day going through it. Our budget for 2020 is going to be a challenge. At the last workshop, we discussed the fact that our reserves needs are going up by a couple $100,000. The honest answer is you just heard us talk tonight about the fact that the athletic complex is going up by a couple $100,000. So I'm starting to look at things, Vaughn is looking at things, we're meeting with Steve, we're going to get something out to the board in the not too distant future to study ahead of that. As a refresher for those in the audience, last year I kind of did some summary exhibits. Steve's got the detailed stuff that CCMC requires, but we kind of do the summary type stuff. But it's going to be a challenge, and anybody in the community that's listening that wants to come on the 16th would probably find it interesting, and it's going to matter. So I wanted to make that comment. Board meetings on September 25th, and then in October, we currently have 2 workshops a month starting in October and going forward. So the board can decide in the middle of September, but we got to decide. We went to 1 workshop a month for the summer. Do we stay with 1 workshop a month, or do we want to go back to 2? And that will be a board conversation item at one of these meetings. Probably we should talk about that at the workshop in September 16th.
I just have one comment, not about that, are you done?
Go ahead, Lon.
I just have a question about what the board wants to do about the item 1 that we just discussed. Are we going to just sit back and wait? Are we going to talk to the county manager's office? What do we want to do?
I can help you with that. On the way out, Beth and Knight, the deputy county manager, said that for them to revisit it would have to be a request from your board. So I'm interpreting that as a official one voice voted request from you at this board, because I think that there's plenty of discussion and conversation about what you were looking for. So I think she's looking for more of a vote from you all as one voice on what you'd like to see.
I don't know if we need a vote, but I mean,
She's asking for it.
She's asking for a motion and a
She's
vote for
asking for a
something.
motion for us to request that the county revisit it based upon the content of the conversation tonight. That's what I
I would
heard.
make a motion if you use those words. That's,
Rachel, did you get those words? So the motion is that the CROA board request that the county staff revisit the county agreement related to the athletic fields based upon the conversation that ensued tonight.
Okay, so this is Kevin's motion?
or it could be yours and I'll
It can be mine. I'll make it and Kevin will second it. How's that?
Do we add anything in there, or just in the conversation that we would welcome each commissioner to potentially walk the facility for, them to fully understand the facility that they're giving $2 million for?
Why don't we invite the commissioners and the county staff to coordinate with Steve and to have them walk to understand the fields?
How about the opening ceremony?
Yeah.
Well, they can't
Well,
come together.
we're not going to
then.
tell them when. They can contact Steve and coordinate when it works for them, because it would probably be 2 or 3 different visits. They wouldn't all do it at the same time, I imagine.
Make sure you give them a map so they can find their way out here.
But could they be invited to the grand opening ceremony that Saturday?
If you want to, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
I think that they can attend ceremonies, they just can't.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got the motion in a second. Any other comment?
No.
I thought she was tied to you.
She gave me the red.
Camera hands.
Okay, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes unanimously, Steve, so you've got direction.
I also have a message really quick I received for Rachel from Mary Ann, because we have the volume down on that. She said she voted on the last bundle of items and then the last two for Blue Sage. And she said her participation ended at 7:45. Okay, so.
Has done it all.
All right. Any last item from David?
Just going back to the discussion about workshops starting in October, whether we do 2. Vanessa was coordinating a lot of those.
Yep, I still have my
Maybe that'll be helpful to just say, what's that master list look like? And do we need 2 a month or 1 a month or?
Yeah, well, there were some items on there we really need to get done.
The other thing that
They've
we.
been hung for a while.
Well, the other thing that we need to do is we have to agree on a public date for the rec plan for the agenda. So I don't know if that would,
We had also had the conversation about whether or not we have a town hall. And we said if we were gonna do that, it would be in the late September, October 1 type timeframe. We need to make that decision at some point.
I think we need to do a town hall with everything. That's my
Yeah, I do
personal
that.
opinion.
I do too. I think we had agreed that we would do a town hall,
It's just setting a
and the
date.
focus would be the recreation
Right.
master, the facilities master plan.
So we can, Benjamin can start looking at dates in October, is that correct, for doing a town hall?
I think, is town hall gonna work, or is October gonna work, Brian? You seem,
No,
Oh, is that
I'm
okay?
fine with it, yeah.
Oh, I thought you did
I'm
have it.
back in
Okay.
early September.
Okay.
If I ever get a leave, if the hurricane hits, I'd be good safe.
So let's float some dates for September,
Yeah,
October.
float some.
October most likely.
Okay, Steve, you're empowered with Susan, float some dates and let's figure out, just everybody respond with calendar stuff, so we can get a town hall kind of starting to be on the Friday flashing calendars. It needs to be on calendar.
I do have one comment. Just a couple of residents have reached out to me. I've also seen it on social media, and I don't know if anyone else has seen it. Conversation regarding panhandling, things that aren't really a new thing that's been happening over at the water tower. I expressed that that is a CROA item, but I did want to go ahead on behalf of the residents and share that with you, if you want to change your hat to the CROA hat for a moment, and just maybe talk about that and bring it to light. Just because I know that the residents of Celebration for CROA are concerned with that.
Are you asking me just to look into it? Not to-
I'm just sharing that comment, and what you decide to do is CROA.
At a
on
minimum,
you.
probably with your CROA hat on, ought to make the CROA agenda, so at least they talk about it at a CROA meeting. I think that would be good.
Well, Canal has zero enforcement authority over that panhandling, so it would most likely be me reaching out to the sheriff's department, and I'll do that immediately.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any last items? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Jackson motion.
We got Jackson and we got David, and any opposed? Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We really appreciate it.
And now the AC kicks on. Are you kidding me?